Oh, you fill my lungs with sweetness.
Hi, my name's Ken, and I'm from the Underground in downtown Portland. Our church is located within a church. We rent part of a building from a church. The defining character of where we are located are 4 towers that are around our location, and those 4 towers are for people who have income of less than $20,000 a year. So from $0 to $20,000 a year. So a lot of the people in those towers don't have enough food to eat. They're not technically homeless in the fact that they have housing, but they don't have much else. Development is happening. We're just a block and a half or 2 blocks from Portland State University. So we're kind of in a neighborhood that is moving up, as well as a neighborhood that houses people who have less.
Spark a match and watch the candle burn. The wick runs out and then love takes its turn. On fallen angels and broken sounds, we will last past the final round. It took a while for you to find me, but I was hiding in the lime tree, above the city in the rain cloud. I poked a hole and watched it drain. Oh yeah.
Would be invisible poverty of some sort, just based on their clothing. Then there would be students, which are pretty visible as well, from Portland State. Not many wealthy people in the neighborhood. Quite a few older people who live in the towers. So the neighborhood is relatively safe, pretty dirty, because the neighborhood is not often cleaned by the city, as you would find in a nicer neighborhood. Or, for example, Irvington probably has, I think, a street sweeper coming by once a month, excuse me. In my neighborhood, a street sweeper comes by once a year. And my neighborhood is primarily non-white people. Well, I mean, we're a racist society, so we take care of our own, and our own being white people. In my neighborhood here by the church is mostly poor people, so again, you're not going to have a lot of cleaning of the area. You're not going to have the police presence will be there to kind of control things, but not as a help to the citizens typically. But sometimes they do help. There's one tower next door to us, directly next door to us, so we can look over a cement fence and there they are. The managers of that building tends to like us for whatever crimes happen in the neighborhood. So there are times, particularly during the summer, where he will come with a complaint. But we know what our plates look like, we know what kind of pop we serve, we know what kind of beverage containers and so on like that come from us. And it's pretty easy to see that we're not the major criminals as far as littering goes. Noisy? Yes. We are noisy. Our average age is probably 19 years old, would you say? Maybe 20 years old. Young people are supposed to be loud. They're supposed to have a good time. They're supposed to laugh. They're supposed to shout. They're supposed to play. A lot of the people in the towers are older and therefore a little bit grumpy. Safeway, some of our people get thrown out of Safeway just for being in Safeway. They may be followed in Safeway. The Plaid Pantry is very popular because the Plaid Pantry does not care if they come in or not. They're just happy to get the business. Most of the rest of the businesses do not have anything to do with the young people because The young people in my crowd can't afford to shop in those businesses. They can't afford a $9 lunch or a $30 meal for dinner. So basically they just walk by on the street and are invisible. Unless they cause some kind of trouble, like asking for money near the doorway of a business, in which case then their life will be run off. We're invisible, which is really nice. But if we are visible, it's not, gee, golly, we're glad you're in the neighborhood. It's more like what we've done wrong and how we need to correct it.
He's looking for another job right now.
But Dollar Store is working, and the Safeway Deli place is also hiring. So we put in for.
My wife is a college professor, and she's absolutely brilliant. And she came up with 50 things that churches do. Of those 50 things, she asked the question, how many of them are essential for a church to do? And so some people got it down to 5, other people got it down to 27 of the 50 things. We skinnied it down to 1. And all we have left is the love. We don't really have anything else left. And the reason is because our people have been so badly overlooked for so long that we need to start and end with love. And have everything in between be love and approval and caring. We are so limited in our purposes and our goals at the underground. And we're limited to the point that what we're wanting to say to people is we love you and we want you. That is absolutely critical to us. Now, as a result of that, it's really hard to fund. How many people have you gotten saved? How many people have you given jobs to? How many people have you gotten into housing? The answer is we don't really know the answer to those questions, but we do know that everybody that walks in the door feels wanted by us. And the reason we know that is because they tell each other behind our backs. And what we hear is the underground is the one place during the week where they can let down and relax and not have to watch their own back because we watch their back. So what is church? In this environment, it's as simple as that. We skinnied it down until all we have left is love. What is community? It's people desiring to be together. It's people feeling safe with each other. It's people who can stand up and look around the room and say, I know these people. There is no membership requirement, but there is a membership in the sense that the people of the community know each other and they can recognize the pain in each other's eyes. So I would say that this is a pain-based community. This is a community that is almost under siege. Some of these people who don't have the mental and physical skills to make it are taken care of by the rest of the community. And it's not like somebody at the top says, we need to take care of this person, and it's your responsibility and your responsibility and your responsibility. It happens. It just happens. And so the community in this case would be almost based on siege. As a white American, middle-class American, I've spent one night outdoor on the street, and that was voluntarily in the last almost 70 years. So obviously I am not part of that community in a real sense. But that community is incredible. They fight amongst themselves, but at the same time, they protect each other. They pay attention to each other. On the street, people live in communal style. We don't find that in the majority white community. It just does not happen. Interestingly enough, there are very few black people in downtown Portland because there are grandmothers and uncles and aunts that take care of kids that are at risk. In the Asian community, there's almost nobody that's Asian downtown except Jefferson. And the reason is because the Asian community takes care of its own. It's almost exclusively white in downtown Portland in the houseless community, and the reason is because we don't take care of our own. In other words, it's not my responsibility. My next door neighbor is not my responsibility. If they're failing with their kids, it's not my problem. But the fact is, yes, it is my problem, and it's important for us. White Americans, particularly white Christian Americans, to begin to realize who our neighbor is. And our neighbor is anyone who's hurting. But I don't think getting rich and comfortable was the original plan of Jesus Christ for his church.
My name is Herman Green. The name of my church is South Lake North. And we serve the North Portland and St. John's community.
Lord, they really think they fooling you by coming to church on Sunday, praying and laying hands on folks, stomping and jumping around, faking the Holy Ghost. But it's a thin line between walking it and talking it and living it and giving it or just pretending it's all right. And do they really think that they could pull the wool over your eyes, Lord? Do they really think that by faith?
So currently we do church out of a community center, and we did that intentionally. So when you ask about what's surrounding the current church, well, there's a Starbucks coffee, as well as there's some mom and pop shops, there's a couple of bars, there's a movie theater, but then if you go about 6 blocks down the street, there's also a weed shop, there's a AA meeting place, there's a liquor store, there's like a little homeless gathering place, and all those things surround the church. But then when you ask yourself about doing church and doing community, you can't simply exclude any of that. Exclusion says that, I only want to serve a certain part. And if we say that, we're called to this community, then I'm called to the Starbucks, I'm called to the AA room, I'm called to the mom and pop shop the same way I'm called to the weed store, because all of them need what I have to offer, and that's the love of Christ. And so all of this surrounds my community because all of this is what I'm called to.
Think about it, you should be about it, not just preach about it all day. Cause if you do, you run the risk of chasing some of the most beautiful people away. And it is never my intention to discourage you, rather encourage you to change your life today. It's be the realest thing I ever had to say.
It would be easier to say what's not happening in the surrounding area. Let's see. What's not happening? Everybody ain't getting rich. That's not happening in the surrounding area. Everybody's not prospering. That's not happening in my surrounding area. We're going through like a transition. It's hard to say. You got a lot of people that are trying to figure out how do we do this on a day-to-day basis. Not trying to exclude anyone or not trying to be better than anybody else, but we all got some of the same problems. We're all dealing with our kids as well as other kids acting crazy. We're all dealing with family members of our own as well as other people's family members that are just out there doing whatever it is that they're trying to do right now. We're all in some sense, some shape, form, or fashion broken. And we're experiencing that, and we're trying to figure out how do we continue to do this. And how do we continue to love one another in spite of all this brokenness that we see happening around us? How do we keep smiling when it's constantly raining? How do we let them know that we love them the same way we love the person that lives in the middle class home that's struggling to, keep the bills paid, keep the rent paid? How do we share that same love with everybody and let them all know that we're here? I see you. and that you do matter. So there's a lot of stuff happening, and there's a lot of stuff that's not happening, but in spite of it all, we're getting through it together, I think. My church is, although we might be small in number, it's never been about the church anyway. It's never been about, you know, our community doesn't need another mega church. It doesn't need another church that's got, you know, 300 seats and 500 people coming and 2 and 3 services a week. What we need is people that care. And so our church goes into the high school, and we serve during reading groups. We do tutoring. We do a teen clothes closet. We do a teen food pantry. We do these things because we are the church. It's not about the building that we have. It's not about where we're at. It's about what do we do for the community? How are we being the church on an everyday basis? So when we go around and we just pick up trash all around us, people will ask, so what'd you guys do? Are you guys in trouble or something? No, we just love our community and we love the people in it. And so when we give clothes to the teen clothes closet, and we give the nice stuff, the Nike stuff, the stuff that we know that other kids need and want to wear, just don't have the opportunity to get, we give them that not because we want anybody to say, oh man, South Lake North is an amazing church. We give it to them because that's what we're supposed to do. It's not about how many people say, oh, I love South Lake North. It's about how many people recognize what the church is doing, what people are doing, how are people showing love, being what the community needs. It's easy to try to do stuff so that our church can be glorified. If I wanted to do that, I could start putting on picnics and start giving out free food. Everybody would start talking about, I love South Lake North because they give us free food and they give us free clothes and they give us free this. But I don't want anybody to reflect the goodness that we do and what we're called to do to simply the church. I want them to see past the church and then glorify the God that's in us. Like, I know them people care. I know them people love us. I know them people believe in us, and we may not all come from the same church. A lot of times when we do stuff, we have people from this church, that church, every church coming in, and they join hands and we all start doing stuff, and nobody talks about what church they're from. We just do the work that God is calling us to do. That's what I think we're supposed to be doing. To try to glorify my church, I don't really care. I don't care if no one ever remembers the name of my church, but I want them to remember the work that I did. That's what's important. To me, church is, it's showing love. It's being love. It's serving a community. It's serving families. It's serving. We are the church. It's a lot of times when you start saying, what is church? People immediately start thinking about it's a building where a lot of people go and then they have services and they worship together. But the building is simply a tool. It's just like having a wrench. You know, the wrench is a tool that we use to get the job done. The church is a tool that we use to help us get the job done. So I feel like I am the church. So when you see me in Fred Meyer's, you see the church. When you see me in the middle of this downtown St. John's, you see the church. You're experiencing the church. You're talking with the church because I am the church. The building that I go to is like a gas station. I go there so that I can be around other people who believe like me, think like me, feel like me. I get filled up so that the church can now go back out into the ministry that God has called me to, and I can be the church out there. A lot of people are not going to come to what we call the church. They're not going to come to our buildings. They're not going to come to our assemblies. They're not going to come to our gatherings because they don't feel like the church cares. Because they associate the feelings and whether or not it's working and how I was treated to that building down the street, and they don't feel like that building cares. But they'll have a conversation with me in a parking lot. They have a conversation with me and Fred Meyer's, and I can be the love that Christ has called me to be. I can share the love that Christ has given to me, and I can be the church with them right there to somehow give them a counter story. Because then they'll be able to say, well, it's not all of them, because I know he's a Christian and he never treated me like that. Because I became the church right where I was at, and I didn't wait for a building. And a lot of time, I think we get those two mixed up. So the church building is a tool, but we are the church. The homeless people are people too. And when we say that you're the God of this city, we're saying that you're the God of the homeless people too. And they need God the same way that we need God. And they need love the same way that we need love. And they need provision and shelter the same way that we need those things. And the enemy only has a matter of time before that is done. And they too become the kings and the queens that God has called them to be, because they have purpose. Everybody has purpose. Community is everything around me. It's everybody around me. Community is not exclusive, but it's very inclusive. You can't say that, you know, this is my community and then only deal with one aspect of it, or only deal with a certain group of people within it. If it's your community, then it's everything. It's bigger than a zip code. So it's not based on just simply, you know, the 203 zip code or the 217 zip code. It's bigger than that. Community is everything and everyone that you're in relationship with, and everything around and everything within the things that you're in relationship with. So my community exists, and it includes the liquor store. But it also includes the AA meeting. It includes the weed shop down the street and everybody that goes in there. It includes, it's just very inclusive. Everybody is a part of my community because this is where I'm called to be. I have to accept everybody in it, whether they believe like I believe, whether they think like I think, whether their gender or they see them as the same as me or something. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter, because they're a part of my community and I'm called to love them. I'm called to accept them. I'm called to embrace them, and I'm called to do life with them, because we're all in this together. We can't do it without everybody in our community, and we have to walk hand in hand with them, and we have to figure out how we're going to get through this together, because we're all trying to get through. Everybody here, we're all trying to get through, given the tools that we have. So my community, what is community to me? It's those that I know and those that I don't know. It's those that I'm going to meet in the future. It's anybody that wants to do the same things that I want to do, and it's anybody that doesn't care to have any part of me. It's all of those things together, just trying to figure out how do we get through this. And I feel like once we become inclusive and start bringing everybody in, and we start walking hand in hand trying to figure out how do we get through this life together, we're going to see some differences. We're going to see some changes made. But until then, we'll try to be exclusive and say that, you know, my community exists and it's this people or this group, and then we'll find ourselves pushing other people out instead of bringing people in. But that's just me.
Hi, my name is Rusty, and I'm going to tell you the story about the chimenea at the corner bench. You see, we used to have a different chimenea. When we built this corner bench, Katrina and Mike across the way there, they really bought into the idea that, hey, this is going to be fun. Let's do this as a community, as a neighborhood, for the neighborhood. And so their contribution to the corner bench was the chimenea. And it had a big old heavy metal stand, and it was bigger than this one. So it took two people to carry it and one person to carry the metal stand. So it was a big lug, and it sat right there in the middle. And one night I heard, well, I was like up early studying. I was like 6 o'clock, it was still dark, and I heard some loud voices coming down the street and then some noises from the bench. And I thought, oh, I wonder what's going on. Maybe they need a little help or someone getting into a fight, or I couldn't quite identify. I went to the door and then the noise stopped. And so I thought, well, okay, well, whatever it was, it's over. But when I came out, you know, later that day, it was gone. And apparently a bunch of people had met here to load it up and cart it off. Oh, wow. So it was stolen. I fantasized about what I would have said if I had come out and caught them doing this. Can I help you lift that? Because that thing is really heavy, I know. But I didn't, and I'm not sure what I would have said would have been very helpful or how I would have acted. Anyway, we talked about what to do and how do you respond and what should we replace it. And Tyson, my neighbor down the street, said, I would like to go buy one and I would like to go bring it and place it right here. Under one condition, we don't chain it down. So his condition for replacing it was, we put another one up, freestanding, use the trust method, and let it sit here of its own free will without the paranoia of having it locked down, anchored to the ground. So it is to me a symbol of trust and hope, and expecting people to be their best. And it's been here now for, I don't know, maybe 6 months. So I'm happy with that. And I think even if we had to replace it every 6 or 12 months, I think it'd be worth it. But I do like living in such a way that I'm not paranoid about my things.
You know, I've heard it said there's beauty in distortion by some people who withdraw to find their head.
And the name of our church is Springwater. It is a worshiping missional community. I don't want to call it by anything where people will think they know what it is and be wrong. And the truth is that all of us in this church have never been part of this kind of church before, so we don't really know what we're doing. We don't know what to call it. We're just learning as we go.
Ain't nothing in sight. Why am I trying to give when no one gives me a try? Why am I dying to live if I'm just living to die?
This church is located in Lower Lentz. Lentz is a very large neighborhood. It's probably 1,000 houses just in our quarter. It's a neighborhood of mostly tiny houses. See, they put them all up as a blue-collar, affordable housing. A lot of these houses are all the same floor plan here. It's a lower income neighborhood, and some of the things that I think distinguish it is that it has sort of a reputation in Portland for being kind of uncool and for statistically having a less educated population and sadly a more criminal population. It has the nickname Felony Flats, which we bristle at, and we are all part of finding out what God is doing here to push back from that bad nickname that gives the wrong impression. Commercial businesses are just, it's not commercially a very successful area. There's a lot of striving small businesses trying to make it. So our focus is mostly just these houses here. There are some apartment complexes, and there are some homeless folks camping mostly along the Springwater corridor.
To weave my words into confusion, and so I hope you'll understand when I'm through. You know, I used to live my life as an illusion, but reality will make my dream come true. So I'll keep fighting to live till there's no reason to fight, and I'll keep trying to see until the end is in sight. You know I'm trying to give, so come on, give me a try. You know I'm dying to live until I'm ready to die.
There are God grievings and there are God sightings. There are things that God is doing that are energizing and that we want to be part of. And there are things that just break God's heart that are just sad stories also. This neighborhood where a fair number of people have lost their homes, or homes have been torn down and new homes have been built on top of it. There are violent encounters the last 2 years, several who have been killed either by violent acts or, incidentally. There's a fellow who was mentally ill who was found floating in Johnson Creek. There's another man who died out in the elements after Oregon Department of Transportation moved the homeless out from their camps along the Johnson Creek. There are also some sad stories of violence, mostly not neighbor upon neighbor, but there's a fair amount of mental health issues and addiction, a lot of addiction. There's the school where I used to work, the elementary school down the street, is a wonderful place to meet awesome people, and especially awesome little people who bring a lot of hope to my heart, just optimism about how things could be better and better. This has been also a wonderful neighborhood where we have met beautiful people who are generous and kind, outgoing, and are making connections that are life-giving for us. I know these people. I love these people. So as a lot of people would say, Springwater, oh yeah, they're the ones who came up with some money for us when we had our laptop stolen or whatever. And there's other people who have been excited about activities we've done in the neighborhood, that they wanted to get in on the Wacky Water Day in the park, or the Bike Fix Clinic at the school in the spring, or the chili cook-off in January, or the street party here that we used to do as a big potato fry. It's now become an international kind of potluck for all the people that live around here. Been a big success. And so sometimes people don't identify that as being Springwater. And that's kind of our goal. God is building interdependence and relationships towards the common good. And so people, getting back to your question, would probably have two responses. One is, Springwater, who is that? I never heard of them. And the other is, oh yeah, I know some of the Springwater people. Yeah, they're all right. I mean, one said yesterday, I would probably be, if I was more into Jesus, I'd probably be in Springwater, but I like what you guys are doing. We find that there are some people who like the sense of belonging, and other people who like the sense of justice and activity towards, improving the neighborhood and the culture. So people have gotten really involved and inspired, and the Neighborhood Action Plan has grown in part out of that, so that it's less about Springwater and more about just what all good things can happen here. I think what is church is a big question, maybe the most important question for Christians to ask themselves, and we usually don't have to, because we usually join something that's kind of already been set up. Like we join something that's a network of relationships with a structure and a government, and it's got all its bylaws written and everything. And so when I became a youth pastor, I asked myself, well, what programs should we continue and what ones should we just kind of nix? Well, it had to do with, well, what's our mission? Because I have to figure out by what criteria will I judge the things that we're doing, if they're contributing or not. So I had to go back to what's our mission? Well, then I had to go back from there to what is the mission of the church, period. And it was so good for me to have to ask those questions. When you start a church, it's the same thing. You have to ask these same questions. And it's such a good process. I mean, I think every 5 years a church ought to spin off another plant so that people can go through that enriching experience of having to ask themselves, what is the church? What our mission is as spring water is to be the family of God, following the way of Jesus, living simply and sacrificially loving our neighborhood. In other words, what does it mean to be a Christian? To begin with, as an individual, it's much less about Christ being in me than it is about me being in Christ. I like to say that I'm committed to living in community because it brings out the worst in you. Because I have hopes of maturing and becoming perfected in Christ. And there's no better way to accelerate the process than by living in a way that bubbles up your issues to the surface, in the context of people who are committed to my best good and also committed to Christ. So people who live with me, they know what my growth areas are. They know where I'm quirky and I need to be tolerated. They know where I'm sinful and need to be confronted. And because we have a kind of a covenantal relationship in which we have asked for that kind of help from one another, I'll be confronted when I'm off. So the thing that's so good about that is we're so defended and guarded as people because we have so many wounds. I think community becomes the place where healing can best happen, because I don't want to open up to somebody who's not safe. But if there's somebody who is safe, they're going to walk with me, they're going to give me a lot of grace, they're going to give me a lot of support, they're going to speak the truth in love, not one without the other, not truth without love, and not love without truth. It's going to be that balance. Then it's going to spell for me accelerated healing, maturity, fruit. So community, I think, is common misconception for people is it's kind of like the frat house, the Christian dorm at the university. Community is not necessarily just a bunch of good friend Christians living together. It's people being in your business to the point that it's sometimes pretty aggravating and it can be a trial, but it also can spell, if you go through it, can also spell great deepening relationships and more confidence and more healing and more less fear, maybe less secrets, and stronger witness.
My name is Ted Bernick. My church is Cedar Mill Bible Church. My surrounding area, communities, and around my community is Cedar Mill, and it's a small community within the Portland boundaries. It's considered northwest, but it's not downtown, and some of the stores are more strip malls. A couple of larger chains just moved in, Market of Choice, and we have just smaller strip malls, Safeway.
You give it all for me. My soul desire, my everything. All I am is devoted to you. How could I fail to see? You are the love that rescued me. All I am is devoted to you. And oh, how could I not be moved, Lord, here with you? So happy.
the surrounding area. Not really any special event type things in the Cedar Mill area, but outside we have baseball fields and the Hillsboro Hops, I think they're called. There are farmers markets that happen during the summertime. Wine tasting and food tastings in the grocery stores and coffee shops around that people like to go to. We try to hold many outside events, so community events at the church, as many as we can, as much as the space allows. There's a Cedar Mill Business Association that meets at the church. There's some Cub Scouts, some other outside events that we like to invite in, and we try and do some outside events, bringing in unwed moms into a house that we own on the property, and there's a ministry there where we try and reach out to them and give them a place to live. I think there's a general consensus that the church is a good addition to the community. Never had anyone say bad things about the community. We've always tried to be within the community and be a part of it. Yeah, we have like they use the parking lot for a plant sale, yearly plant sale. They use the parking lot for parking. There's TriMet uses the parking lot. We also have the cider festival that happens there on the property. So what is church to me? Church is a place for like-minded people that believe in Jesus to come to a building, for one, and worship Jesus, learn about him, learn about the Bible, and just be together in fellowship. So the relationship between church and community for me is anytime I'm out in the community, I try and share what church is or who Jesus is to me, and hopefully just have a positive impact on the people that I come in contact with in the community.